The grand chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with voices. Hundreds of alien species gathered in the massive room. Blue lights shined from the high ceiling. The curved walls displayed moving star maps. In the center, a floating platform held the 7 High Counselors, the most powerful beings in known space. Ambassador Krell stepped to the speaking circle. His scaled skin reflected the light as he moved. 4 yellow eyes blinked in sequence. He wore the ceremonial armor of the Zathrian Empire polished to a mirror shine. "Honorable Council," Krell said, voice amplified through the chamber. "The Zathrian Empire requests approval for military action." He gestured to the star map, which zoomed to show a cluster of planets near the edge of Zathrian space. "These human colonies encroach on territories claimed by our empire for generations." Several council members nodded. The humans were newcomers to galactic society. They had spread quickly, establishing colonies wherever they could find suitable planets. "These humans ignore our warnings," Krell continued. "They build military installations disguised as research outposts. They refuse proper diplomatic channels. The Zathrian Empire seeks permission for swift corrective action." The lead counselor, a tall being with translucent skin, raised a hand. "The floor is open for discussion on this matter." Voices rose throughout the chamber. Most seemed to favor the Zathrian position. The humans had moved too quickly, too boldly, into established territories. Then a soft tapping sound cut through the noise. Elder Diplomat Vorex, the oldest member of the Jaxari species, made his way slowly to the speaking circle. His walking stick clicked against the floor. His body was bent with age, skin hanging in loose folds from his frame. The chamber quieted. Out of respect, Vorex stood before the council, breathing heavily from the short walk. His large eyes, cloudy with age, looked around the room. "I have lived 270 galactic cycles," he began, voice surprisingly strong. "I speak now of something most here are too young to remember." The chamber went silent. Even the council members leaned forward. "My species encountered humans long ago, before Earth joined galactic society, before most here were born." Vorex paused, gathering strength. "We found them on a distant world where some had traveled in primitive ships. We did not understand them. We saw them as simple creatures." He shook his head slowly. "We were wrong. We took actions against them thinking they would surrender or flee. Instead they fought, and when they could not win by fighting, they waited. They planned. They remembered." Vorex's eyes found Ambassador Krell. 3 generations later, when we had nearly forgotten the incident, they returned, not with anger or rage, but with purpose. They had crossed vast distances, tracking us across stars, not for revenge, but for what they called justice. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Vorex raised his voice. "Attack them if you must, but understand this truth. Humans do not fight like other species. They do not surrender, they do not forget, and they will hunt you forever." Ambassador Krell laughed, a harsh sound. "With respect, Elder Diplomat, times have changed. These are not the primitive humans of your stories. They understand galactic law. They will withdraw when faced with superior force." Several council members nodded in agreement. The lead counselor looked at Vorex. "While we value your experience, Elder Diplomat, we must consider current realities. The Zathrian Empire has legitimate territorial concerns." Vorex sighed. He looked suddenly older, more tired. "You mistake my purpose. I do not speak to protect humans, I speak to protect you." He turned, making his slow way back to his seat. The council continued its discussion, but the decision seemed clear. Most saw the humans as an annoyance, not a threat. After an hour of debate, the vote was taken. The human settlement of Nova Esperanza glowed softly against the night side of the planet. Homes and community buildings formed neat patterns around the central hub. Farm domes stretched to the east, their lights dimmer as plants rested in the artificial night cycle. Inside the command center, Captain Lisa Howard reviewed the day's reports. 6 years as the settlement leader had created deep lines around her eyes, but her movements remained quick and decisive. "Resource report looks good," she said to her deputy. "The new water system is working better than expected." A young communications officer turned from her station. "Captain, we're getting some unusual readings at the edge of our sensor range." Lisa moved to the screen. "Could be those magnetic storms again. They've been worse this season." The officer shook her head. "Different pattern. More like..." The emergency alarm cut her off, its harsh sound filling the room. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. The sensor operator shouted. "Configuration unknown." Lisa hit the colony-wide alert button. "All residents to shelter locations. This is not a drill." She opened a channel to the unknown ships. "This is Captain Lisa Howard of the Earth Settlement, Nova Esperanza. We are a civilian research and agricultural colony. Please identify yourselves." No response came. On the screens, 7 large vessels moved into formation around the planet. "Try emergency channels," Lisa ordered. "Get a message to Earth Command." "They're blocking all outgoing signals," the communications officer said, panic edging into her voice. The first shots hit the small defensive shield grid. The entire building shook. Warning lights flashed across every screen. "Shield capacity at 40%, someone called out. Lisa grabbed the emergency protocols tablet. "Activate evacuation plan, Delta. Get everyone to the escape ships." Outside, bright flashes lit the sky as Zathrian weapons struck the settlement. Buildings crumbled. The farm domes shattered, their atmospheres venting in clouds of moisture. Aboard, his command ship, Admiral Gorva of the Zathrian fleet, watched with satisfaction. His gray-scaled face showed no emotion as reports came in. "Human defense is failing," his weapons officer reported. "Minimal resistance encountered." Gorva nodded. "As expected, these colonists are not warriors." He tapped a claw against his armrest. "Maintain bombardment until all military capabilities are neutralized. Remember the Council's directive. Focus on infrastructure, avoid excessive casualties." Back in the settlement, Lisa rushed through crowded hallways. People carried what little they could grab. Children cried. The building shook again. "Keep moving to the hangars," Lisa shouted above the noise. She spotted her 16-year-old son Kyle helping an elderly woman. Relief washed through her. "Mom," Kyle called out. "What's happening?" "No time," Lisa said, pushing them forward. "Get to Ship 4. The underground hangar held 6 small escape vessels. Already 2 had launched, breaking atmosphere before the Zathrian ships could target them. Lisa directed people into the remaining ships. 4 minutes until shield failure," the engineer beside her warned. Ship 3 launched successfully. As Lisa herded the last group toward Ship 4, a massive explosion rocked the hangar. Part of the ceiling collapsed, blocking access to Ships 5 and 6. "Everyone on 4, now!" Lisa ordered. She counted as people boarded, making sure Kyle got on safely. As the last civilian entered, she jumped in and sealed the door. The pilot, her hands shaking, initiated launch sequence. 5 Zathrian ships in orbital position. They'll see us immediately. "Just get us to jump distance," Lisa said. "Emergency protocols, random coordinates." The escape ship shot from the hangar as the settlement's main power core exploded behind them. The vessel shuddered as weapons lock alarms sounded. "They're targeting us," the pilot cried. "Evasive pattern," Lisa ordered. "Push the engines beyond safety limits if needed." From his command ship, Admiral Gorva watched as his gunners targeted the fleeing vessel. "Disable only," he commanded. The Council would prefer prisoners. But before his ships could corner the human vessel, it suddenly accelerated to jump speed, vanishing in a flash of light. Gorva frowned slightly. "Track their trajectory." "Impossible, Admiral," his navigator replied. "They initiated an emergency jump, random coordinates." Gorva dismissed the concern with a wave. "It doesn't matter. 1 ship of refugees is no threat." He turned to his communications officer. "Prepare a report for the Council. Operation successful with minimal collateral damage. Proceed to the next target settlement." The Admiral looked out at the burning remains of Nova Esperanza. These humans would learn their place in the Galactic Order, And if not these, then their children would understand that the Zathrian Empire was not to be challenged. The Council approves the Zathrian request for corrective military action, the lead counselor announced, with the understanding that civilian casualties are to be avoided and actions limited to the disputed territories. Ambassador Krell bowed deeply. The Empire thanks the Council for its wisdom. As the session ended, Elder Diplomat Vorex watched silently from his seat. In his eyes was something rare for his peaceful species, a look of genuine pity for the Zathrians. The United Earth Defense Council chamber was silent. 50 men and women sat around the large oval table. No one spoke. All eyes were fixed on the large screen at the front of the room. The footage from Nova Esperanza played for the third time. Security cameras had captured the attack from multiple angles. Buildings collapsed. People ran for safety. The Zathrian ships fired with cold precision. When the recording ended, Admiral John Reeves stood up. His uniform was perfectly pressed, but dark circles showed under his eyes. He had not slept since the news arrived 12 hours ago. "That's all we have," he said. His voice was calm, controlled. 2 escape ships reached our outpost in the Arcturus system. Captain Howard's ship is still unaccounted for. An older woman near the head of the table spoke. "Casualties? We estimate 800 dead, 300 evacuated safely." "Admiral," Reeves tapped his tablet, "we've confirmed the Zathrians have attacked 2 more settlements since Nova Esperanza, smaller outposts with fewer defenses." President Ellen Clark looked around the table. "Options?" General Frank Miller leaned forward. "Immediate military response. We have 3 battle groups that could reach Zathrian space within a week." "And start a full-scale war?" asked Secretary Wei. "The Zathrians have the backing of the Galactic Council for this action. We need to be smart." Dr. Diane Miller sat quietly at the far end of the table. Unlike the others in their formal clothes, she wore a simple lab coat. Her hands gripped a small photo frame. The picture showed her with her arm around her sister, who had been stationed at Nova Esperanza as a research scientist. "Dr. Miller," President Clark said, "you have studied the Zathrians more than anyone here. What's your assessment?" All eyes turned to her. Diane placed the photo face down on the table. "The Zathrians understand only strength," she said, "but they expect us to respond like other species they've encountered, with either immediate aggression or immediate surrender." She stood up, her voice growing stronger. "They believe we're predictable. We should show them we're not." For the next hour, the Council discussed strategy. When they finally voted, it was unanimous. Not for a hasty counterattack, but for something more measured. In his private chambers on the Zathrian homeworld, Ambassador Krell received an urgent message. The humans had called for an emergency session of the Galactic Council. He smiled to himself. They would likely plead for mercy or protection. It would be amusing to watch. The council chamber was packed when Krell arrived. Representatives from 100 species waited in tense silence. The human ambassador, Peter Daniels, stood alone in the speaking circle. "We will be brief," Daniels said. His voice was quiet, yet carried throughout the chamber. "We have a message for the Zathrian Empire and for all who sanctioned their actions." The main screen activated. It showed a simple image of Earth, blue and green against the blackness of space. Then the image changed to show the burning ruins of Nova Esperanza. "To the Zathrian Empire and all who sanctioned this action, we will not rest until justice is done. This is not a threat. This is a promise." Daniels turned directly to Ambassador Krell. "The Zathrian diplomatic mission on Earth has been given 24 hours to depart. After that time, we will consider ourselves in a state of conflict with your empire." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Such a declaration was unusual. Most species would either attack immediately or seek council mediation. Krell stood to respond, but Daniels had already left the speaking circle. The human walked past Krell without a glance, as if he were already forgotten. Across human space, military reserves received activation notices. Merchant ships changed course, heading to safe harbors. Colonies strengthened defenses, but there was no panic, no chaotic mobilization, just quiet, deliberate preparation. On Earth, Dr. Diane Miller packed a small bag. Her lab colleagues watched in silence as she removed personal items from her office. "Where will you go?" one asked. Commander Alan Carter stood at the window of the small station. The gas giant below filled the view with swirling orange and red clouds. Out here at the edge of human space, few ships ever passed by. The perfect place to forget about the universe. The communication panel beeped. Alan sighed and pressed the button. "Commander Carter," a voice said. "This is Earth Command. Priority Alpha." Alan straightened his back. Priority Alpha meant only one thing: war. "I'm listening," he said. "Return to Earth immediately. Full details upon arrival." 2 days later, Alan walked through the halls of Earth Command headquarters. People moved quickly around him. The usual relaxed atmosphere was gone, replaced by quiet focus. Admiral Reeves met him in a secure room deep underground. Maps and charts covered the walls. A dozen officers worked at computer stations. "Commander," Reeves said, shaking his hand. "Thank you for coming so quickly. I served with people on Nova Esperanza," Alan said simply. The Admiral nodded. "That's one reason you're here." He gestured to a chair. "What do you know about the Zathrian Empire?" Alan thought for a moment. "Expansionist, hierarchical society, technologically advanced but conservative in their tactics." "Good summary," Reeves said. He tapped a screen, bringing up images of Zathrian ships and bases. "What would you do if I ordered you to attack them directly?" Alan studied the images. "I'd advise against it, sir. Their fleet outnumbers ours 5-1. Direct confrontation would be costly." The Admiral smiled slightly. "And if I told you to make them regret attacking us without starting a galactic war?" Alan's eyes narrowed. "That's a different approach." He leaned forward. "You want asymmetric warfare. The Zathrians expect us to either attack in force or beg for peace," Reeves said. "We'll do neither. I'm authorizing Operation Long Hunt." He explained the plan. Small, specialized teams operating independently. No direct attacks on civilian targets, no mass casualties, just persistent, unpredictable strikes against military infrastructure, making the Zathrians feel watched, vulnerable, hunted. "You'll command Task Force Ghost," Reeves said. 12 of our best operators, complete autonomy. One objective: make the Zathrians understand their mistake. Alan nodded slowly. "The Zathrians value order and predictability. We'll give them chaos and uncertainty." In a luxury residence on the Zathrian homeworld, Admiral Gorva enjoyed a celebratory dinner with his officers. Plates of rare delicacies covered the table. Servants poured expensive drinks. "The humans have withdrawn their diplomatic mission," his intelligence officer reported. "But otherwise, minimal response. Their military remains in defensive positions." Gorva nodded with satisfaction. "As expected, their council is probably debating whether to beg for terms." He raised his glass. "To successful pacification of the border regions." The others joined the toast. As they drank, the lights flickered briefly. "Poor timing for a power fluctuation," Gorva commented. His communications officer checked his device. "Strange. The Central District is reporting network issues as well." Gorva waved dismissively. "Technical problems happen. Don't let it spoil our celebration." The next morning, reports came in from across Zathrian space. 3 military supply ships had vanished during routine transport runs. A communication relay near the border had gone offline. Security systems at 2 orbital defense platforms had experienced unexplained resets. "Minor issues," Gorva told his staff. "Coincidences or equipment failures." 2 days later, more incidents occurred. A military fuel depot reported inventory discrepancies. Security cameras at a shipyard showed strange gaps in their recordings. A defense minister's private computer was accessed by unknown means. No major damage. No attacks. Just small, unexplained occurrences that individually meant little. But together, they formed a pattern that made Gorva increasingly uneasy. In his private office, he received a secure transmission from Zathrian intelligence. "We've detected unusual activity in our systems," the intelligence director said. "Subtle intrusions. Whenever we trace them, we find nothing, but they're there." Gorva frowned. "The humans?" "We can't confirm, but the timing suggests it." The director hesitated. "These aren't random attacks, Admiral. Someone is mapping our networks, learning our protocols, watching us." "Increase security at all critical facilities," Gorva ordered, "and find these intruders." As he ended the transmission, Gorva felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. He had expected human weakness. Instead, he faced human patience. For the first time, he wondered if the elder diplomat's warning had deserved more attention. Somewhere in Zathrian space, Commander Alan Carter and his team moved quietly from shadow to shadow, leaving no trace except a growing sense of unease among their enemies. Diane looked at the photo of her sister one last time before placing it in her bag. "Wherever I'm needed." In the Zathrian Empire, celebration broadcasts announced their successful military action. The announcers assured citizens that the humans, being a young and inexperienced species, would soon accept the natural order of galactic politics. None of them noticed the small, unmarked ships that slipped quietly into their space, or the communication satellites that briefly flickered as new code was uploaded to their systems. The hunt had begun. 3 months passed without direct military action from the humans. In the Grand Palace on the Zathrian homeworld, Emperor Vex received regular updates on the border situation. The reports were all positive. Human ships avoided Zathrian space. Their colonies near the border stood empty, abandoned after the attacks. "The humans have accepted reality," Ambassador Krell said during the weekly briefing. "As I predicted, they understand their place now." Emperor Vex nodded. "The Council made the right decision in supporting our action. Order has been restored." That night, as the twin moons rose over the capital city, alarms blared across 6 Zathrian worlds. On the military base of Torva Prime, the main power grid failed suddenly. Backup systems activated, then shut down seconds later. In the darkness, security personnel ran in confusion. On the shipyard moon of Krell's Rest, the automated construction systems came to life without commands. 3 nearly completed warships detached from their docking clamps. They drifted into each other, causing massive damage. At the Zathrian Defense Academy, all security doors locked simultaneously. Then the fire suppression system activated, flooding sensitive computer rooms with flame-retardant foam. On the mining world of Gorth, the orbital loading stations lost gravity control. Thousands of tons of refined metals floated free, colliding with nearby structures. In the research facility on Zath Minor, all data in the military development servers was suddenly encrypted with an unknown code. Scientists watched helplessly as years of weapons research became inaccessible. And on the homeworld itself, the central military communication hub went completely dark. For 6 hours, the Zathrian military command structure could not coordinate between worlds. By morning, reports flooded into Admiral Gorva's office. The damage was extensive but precise. No Zathrian lives had been lost, but the cost in equipment and infrastructure ran into billions. Most disturbing were the security recordings. At each location, glimpses of humanoid figures appeared on camera. They moved with purpose, clearly familiar with Zathrian facilities. They wore no uniforms, carried no flags, but their shapes were unmistakably human. Gorva stared at the images, his face tight with anger. How did they get past our defenses? How did they coordinate attacks on 6 worlds simultaneously? His security chief had no answers. "We've increased patrols and changed all access codes. But Admiral, these weren't random targets. They knew exactly where to strike for maximum effect." In the emergency session of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Krell demanded action. His normally controlled voice shook with rage. "The humans have committed acts of terrorism against the Zathrian Empire," he shouted. "They infiltrated civilian areas. They destroyed valuable property. The Council must condemn these actions." Ambassador Peter Daniels of Earth listened calmly. When it was his turn to speak, he walked slowly to the center of the chamber. 3 months ago, I delivered a message, he said. I promised that we would not rest until justice was done. He looked directly at Krell. We warned you. This is not terrorism. This is justice, delivered personally. Murmurs spread through the council chamber. Such actions were unusual in galactic conflicts. Most species relied on direct military engagement or diplomatic pressure. You attack from the shadows like cowards, Krell hissed. Daniel smiled slightly. We attack with precision. Not a single Zathrian life was lost. That was a choice, not a limitation. As the council debated, Admiral Gorva returned to his family estate on the Zathrian homeworld. Security teams had swept the buildings and grounds twice that day. Guards stood at every entrance, yet when Gorva entered his private bedroom, he stopped, cold. Nothing appeared disturbed. His possessions remained in their places. But there on his pillow sat a small metal object, a human military insignia. Somehow they had reached him in what should have been. The small ship moved quietly between stars. It had no military markings. Its design was simple, common among traders. Inside, Susan Wright studied star charts on her display. As Earth's diplomatic envoy, she had spent the last month traveling to worlds on the edges of Zathrian space. The ship's pilot, a young man named Eric, looked back from his controls. We're approaching Tellus 3. Their orbital station has granted ES docking permission. Susan nodded. Remember, we're scientific researchers, the most secure location in the Empire. They could have killed him. Instead, they left a message. For the first time in his distinguished career, Admiral Gorva felt fear take root in his chest. He ordered his family moved to a secure military facility. He doubled his personal guards. But that night, and many nights after, he woke in darkness, certain that human eyes were watching him. In his next report to the Emperor, Gorva did not mention the insignia, nor did he share his growing concern that they had gravely misunderstood what kind of enemy they had made. 1 year had passed since the attack on Nova Esperanza. The galaxy watched as the conflict between humans and the Zathrian Empire continued. But it was unlike any war most species had seen before. No great space battles filled the news feeds. No planets were bombarded. The humans never sent their battle fleets directly against Zathrian forces. Instead, they operated from the shadows, striking military targets with perfect precision, then vanishing before response forces arrived. In his new command center, buried deep beneath a mountain on the Zathrian homeworld, Admiral Gorva reviewed the latest security failures. Dark circles showed under his four-eyes. He had not slept well in months. 3 more incidents last night, his security chief reported. A weapons factory on Krell's moon lost all navigation data for their shipments. A military training facility on Zath Minor found human observation devices in their air systems. And your personal transport shuttle was found with its engine control chip replaced. Gorva slammed his fist on the table. How? We change security protocols daily. We've tripled guards at all facilities. The humans adapt faster than we can, the security chief said softly. They seem to anticipate our moves. In diplomatic chambers across the galaxy, Susan Wright continued her quiet meetings. Not with the great powers, but with smaller species who had suffered under Zathrian expansion over the centuries. The Zathrians took 3 of your outer colonies 50 years ago, she said to the representatives of the Pelian Federation, a small but proud people. They stripped your resources and left the worlds unusable. The Pelian leader nodded slowly. We had no choice but to accept. Their fleet was too powerful. Susan smiled. What if you had friends with the technology to disable that fleet without firing a shot? What if those friends asked for nothing in return except cooperation? By the end of the meeting, another ally had joined Earth's growing coalition. In a secure conference room on Earth, Admiral Reeves met with Commander Carter, recently returned from his latest mission in Zathrian space. The network is complete, Carter reported. We've mapped every major Zathrian military communication system. We've placed access points in their navigational control centers. Most importantly, we've created backup systems for their life support controls. Reeves raised an eyebrow. Life support? So we can ensure they stay on, Carter explained. We don't want anyone to die. We just want them to understand they're vulnerable. Well done, Reeves said. The diplomatic side is making progress too. 5 species formerly neutral or aligned with the Zathrians have signed mutual defense agreements with us. On the Zathrian homeworld, an unusual visitor arrived at the military command center. Elder diplomat Vorex, moving slowly with his walking stick, came in person rather than sending a message. Admiral Gorva met him with forced politeness. Elder diplomat, this is unexpected. Vorex placed a small data crystal on the table between them. I bring a gift. The complete records of my people's encounter with humans centuries ago. Our tactical assessments, our mistakes. He looked directly at Gorva. Study these. Understand what you face. After Vorex left, Gorva reviewed the records with growing concern. They showed humans fighting wars spanning generations. Conflicts where technologically superior forces were worn down not by force but by relentless determination. Most disturbing were accounts of human vendettas. Informal conflicts where small groups pursued enemies across vast distances and time, never surrendering their purpose. That night, in a dramatic session of the Galactic Council, 5 previously neutral species announced mutual defense pacts with Earth. The message was clear. The Zathrians now faced not just humans, but a growing coalition. Desperate to regain control of the situation, Admiral Gorva ordered a major fleet movement toward Earth, not to attack but as a show of force. Let them see our might, he told the Emperor. They will back down. It was a fatal error. As the Zathrian fleet formation entered jump space, every shipwreck the Galactic Council chamber had never been so full. Representatives from 200 species crowded the Great Hall. Guards stood at all entrances. The air felt heavy with tension. In the center of the chamber, the Peace Summit was about to begin. The Zathrian delegation sat on one side of the circular table. For the first time in known history, Emperor Vex himself had come. His golden robes shimmered in the light. His face showed no emotion, but his rigid posture revealed his discomfort. On the other side sat the human delegation. President Ellen Clark led them, her simple blue uniform a contrast to the Emperor's elaborate dress. Admiral Reeves and Commander Carter flanked her. Both wore standard military uniforms with no special decorations. The lead counselor stood. We gather today to end the conflict between the Zathrian Empire and humanity. Both parties have agreed to these talks in good faith. Emperor Vex spoke first. The Zathrian Empire seeks peace. The recent difficulties have harmed all our peoples. President Clark nodded. Humanity also desires peace, but peace must come with justice. For 3 days, the delegations worked through the terms. The humans did not demand territory or resources. Their terms were simple but firm. Reparations for Nova Esperanza and the other destroyed settlements, a demilitarized zone established at the border, and regular inspections of military facilities on both sides. The Zathrians, expecting harsh demands for territory or their surrender, were surprised by the moderate approach. In private chambers, Emperor Vex questioned his advisors. They could demand much more, he said. Their coalition grows stronger each day. Why such restraint? Ambassador Krell had no answer. His career had suffered greatly as the conflict dragged on. His earlier confidence was gone. On the final day, as the terms were being finalized, Admiral Gorva was brought into the chamber. His once proud uniform had been stripped of rank insignia. Guards walked on either side of him. As agreed, Emperor, Vex said, the officer responsible for the initial attacks will answer to galactic law. Gorva kept his head high as he was led away. He would face trial, but at least he had the small comfort of knowing he was not being handed directly to the humans. As the proceedings concluded, a side door opened. Captain Lisa Howard walked in with her son Kyle beside her. Their escape ship had been found months ago, hidden on a remote moon. Since then, they had lived on Earth waiting for this day. President Clark invited them to speak. The chamber went silent as Lisa approached the center. I commanded Nova Esperanza when it was destroyed, she said. Her voice was steady. I watched my home burn. I saw friends die. She looked directly at Emperor Vex. I could ask for revenge. Kyle stood tall beside his mother. At 17, he was nearly a man now. The attack had taken his childhood, but revenge would only continue the cycle, Lisa continued. My son would grow up with hatred in his heart. Others would seek vengeance for your losses. It would never end. She paused. We humans can hunt forever, but we'd rather build forever. Her simple words echoed in the vast chamber. Many present had expected human anger, demands for punishment. Instead, they offered a path forward. The peace treaty was signed that afternoon. As delegates filed out of the chamber, elder diplomat Vorex approached Dr. Diane Miller, who had led the human scientific team during the conflict. Your people are puzzling, he said. You tracked the killers of your sister across the stars. You disabled the most powerful fleet in the quadrant, yet you ask for so little in victory. Diane smiled, slightly. We don't need to destroy our enemies, elder diplomat. Making them understand is enough. Vorex nodded. The Council will listen more carefully to warnings in the future, he said, especially about humans. In the years that followed, the phrase, waking the humans entered galactic language. Species used it to warn against provoking those who seemed peaceful. The great powers learned to approach Earth with respect rather than arrogance. The Zathrian Empire slowly rebuilt its reputation under new leadership. The demilitarized zone became a place of trade rather than tension, and Captain Lisa Howard returned to space, leading a scientific mission into unexplored regions. When asked by alien allies why humans had been so measured in victory, Admiral Reeves would often quote an ancient Earth saying, "The true power of humanity isn't in our ability to make war, but in our choice to make peace." I have the same message on their command screens. We've been waiting for you. Across Zathrian space, military vessels suddenly found their navigation systems compromised, weapon systems locked, and life support functioning at minimum capacity. They were alive, but helpless. On every Zathrian ship, the same message played. We could have killed you all. Remember that when we offer terms.